Welcome to the Six Figure Business Mastery Podcast, where every week, Kirsten and Jeanne dive into the essential topics to fuel your business growth, from copywriting to course creation, mindset to video marketing.
Welcome, everyone, to our latest episode. Thanks so much for joining us today. And we are very excited to be joined by Ray Engan from the Lean In Factor. Ray is a fantastic speaker. He's so much fun. And he works with speakers and coaches that love to speak and coach, but they don't manage their sales well. So it's going to be a great conversation about the lean in factor, faster friendships and better sales. So thanks so much for being here, Ray.
Oh, it's awesome to be here. This is a hoot. I even brought my own ray of sunshine for my shoulder right here.
Oh, I like it. I see that sunshine.
The drop of the sun, it's me to call myself. All right.
It's interesting because people do like to coach, they do like to speak, but a lot of people hate sales, right? So how do you help them with that?
100%. And over the last 5 years working with a lot of entrepreneurs, what I was dealing with was people that told me that they have this great idea and they're brilliant, and they also are amazing at building rapport. And that's their words, right? And I said, so what's the problem? Nobody calls me back and nobody answers my email. And what I really realized then is that there's a big gap between a stranger and being a client. And that gap is connection. And that's what people don't do very well. We put barriers up in front of us to connect with people on a regular basis. And if you ask for advice on how to connect with people, you get the wrong advice because people think you have to be polite and reverent and put people up on a pedestal. And the number one tip I would give anybody that's trying to meet someone that they've never met before, be it in business, on the sidewalk, whatever, stop asking questions. The questions, your friends don't ask you questions when they meet you. And what happens when someone comes up, think about this. If I said, can I ask you a question? Your natural response is you go, okay. You pull away and you dip your chin. You're protecting your throat because there's a perceived threat by your critter brain. But if I said, I have a crazy question, you actually lean in and go, well, what is it? So when we go in and we say, here's something that your friends have never said to you. Good morning. How are you today? They will not do that. Say, oh, I love that red on you, or whatever they're saying. That's what they do. And so when you start with a question, you immediately put this wall up. And I discovered this. I did stand-up comedy for 15 years. And then I went into sales. And the first sales job I had was in retail. And when I became a sales manager, the first thing I did was forbid everybody in the store from saying the question that you get asked every single time you walk in a retail store. Can I help you? When you ask that question, can I help you? No, I'm just looking. And then 2 seconds later, they're like, where is that person? I got questions. But if you make a statement, and the one that I first tried, which still works to this day, if anybody in retail wants to use this, I'll let you buy that. And when you say I'll let you buy that, here's the exact response every single time. Oh, I bet you would. But while you're here, let me ask you this. So what you did is you start a conversation. Questions don't start a conversation. Statements start a conversation. And the thing is, especially when you're going into business, do you want somebody that's reverent to you? Or do you want somebody that's comfortable and confident in what they do? Mm-hmm. And that's what statements do for you, is it portrays confidence and comfort. You will never hear me come on a podcast, a Zoom call, and the first thing I'll say is, hi, how are you today? You'll never hear it. You say, what's that painting? I'll make a statement based on, oh, that's a great color green for you, Kirsten. And something like that, because like people who wear colorful stuff, they do it for a reason. They like to be noticed. And if you call it out, they're like, oh, thank you. If you compliment, if somebody has some really nice shoes on and you say, wow, those are great shoes, you will get a reply, one of two things. They'll either tell you who made it or how much they spent for it. It'll be these Jimmy Choo. Oh, we'll celebrate it with balloons. Or these Walmart, $6. So they're proud of one way or another. They got these great looking things for no money, or they spent the money and they got the best. And those are the things, that's the biggest mistake I see people making. Your friends never will send you an email that say, I hope this finds you well.
Oh, chat will though. Chat GPT, that's his favorite first line when writing in an email.
And then that's exactly how you know that's not a real person, or that person isn't your friend. Chat GPT is to me, it allows me to brainstorm by myself because I can't do it by myself. So it'll give me answers. I never use what it says, but it gives me the ideas and it kicks that off. So Chat GPT is like an intern.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You wouldn't put him in charge of your whole company, but let him do the work for you. Absolutely.
But I love how you also inject humor And I think that people love that. They want to laugh. They want to smile. They want to feel like brings levity and puts your shoulders down, especially when it's like a cold relationship. You don't know that person.
It is the biggest secret weapon you can possibly have. There's a book called Humor Seriously that talks about the business side of humor, and it's a fantastic book. But what it is, you can even see it with people because it's instant rapport, likability, and trust. And if I'm doing these things live, I'll go up and I'll say, so when you meet a stranger, sometimes it's magical, sometimes it's creepy. What's the difference? And the number one answer I get is the vibe, right? What the heck is a vibe? How do you create the vibe? And then somebody would say, oh, it's the tone. And I go, oh, so it's the tone. So if I come up to you and I go, hi, what's your name? And I do that. And even on Zoom, it happens. People will pull back and they'll drop their chin, right? The most vulnerable area of your body, you are hardwired to protect it when you feel the creep vibe. And so I go, oh, I'll change my tone. That'll do it. They go, yeah. And I go, oh, hi, what's your name? And they go, oh, that's creepier. It is just when you make people laugh, what's the opposite of tucking your chin? You throw your head back. You expose your throat saying, I trust you. That's a subconscious, I trust you. And using humor in sales, for example, they did a study and they did the exact same sales presentation to people. And the only difference was one person at the end said, and I'll throw in my pet frog. And that person sold 37% more.
Amazing.
And humor is not comedy. It's just creating a smile in business. And that's all you need. You can have a great sense of humor and not be funny. And you can use humor and not be funny at all. Let cartoons do it for you.
So Ray, I am in Orlando right now for PodFest. So I will be meeting lots of new people. So at a conference, obviously you're looking to make connections. I would like to find incredible guests like you to be on our podcast. I would like to be invited as a guest on other people's podcasts. We're looking for people to collaborate with. And of course, always hopefully find some clients, right? So what are your best tips for communications and sales and meeting people in this type of environment?
If you can personalize it a little bit and be different than everybody else. So I call it being acceptably unusual. So instead of saying, hi, what's your name? What do you do for a living? How boring is that? Everybody's going to be saying that there. Tell me the most exciting thing that's happened to you at work this year. That's a much better question, and they haven't been asked it. Here's what I say. I'm looking for a hero, and I'm hoping you're it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Don't ask questions about work that everybody else would ask. So you do this. That's great. What cartoon character shaped you growing up to make you like this? Then you become memorable. When I worked in sales for this one company, we did stuff to large companies, and we did defense contractors and prime contractors and big companies. And there was a show that Disney was at, and everybody was in line waiting to talk to Disney because they wanted to be Disney's procurement specialist. And everybody's doing the same thing, walking up. And I saw the woman who's in charge of Disney procurement just had this glaze over her face. Everybody, and I pulled my guy and I said, look, here's what I want you to say to this person. Why don't you do it? I go, no, because you're the one that has to get better at it. I could do this now. I need you to do this. So he walks up and he said, he goes, oh yeah, hi, blah. And he goes, oh, what did we do? In the last year, we put the space shuttle up twice. We put Carrie Underwood on stage in front of 18,000 people where she wouldn't have made it. And we also, that lander that's up on Mars, roving around there, we did that too. Is there a miracle that Disney needs in the next 6 months that we could solve for you? And she looked at him and went, what? And she grabbed the secret card out of the pocket and said, call me tomorrow. And that's how you stand out. When we communicate, and part of the lean-in factor is there's three things I always tell, whether you're any kind of communication. You clarify, simplify, and amplify. And when you talk, what is the one goal of your conversation? And you have to be able to say this in 10 words or less. You need that kind of clarity. There's only one reason to speak. And it comes from the best thing I heard was John F. Kennedy, to change the world. And now you aren't going to change the world. Like on this podcast right here, we're not going to change the world, but somebody hears one of these things. And if you take those tips to the podcast convention and you meet somebody new, I just change your world. And so that's what your goal is. And if you think that clearly when you're sending an email, when you're having a communication with people, then it becomes much more impactful. To clarify is, what do you want your audience, the person, to do, think, or feel when you're done? And you got to be able to say it. I like to do it in 5 words or less. Or simplify is whatever you're about to say in 8 words, say it in 3. Because we use fluff words all the time to get people to try and like us. And 90% those backfire all the time. If I was going to give you my opinion and I say, I think, you're trying to be polite when I think it's not like this is true. I think, but what the person on the other end hears is, hey, dummy, I'm smarter than you. Listen to this. And we don't realize that we're doing that, especially with strangers that you don't know. Your friends are fine. You can't screw up a client or a good friend with a mistake in words. And then amplify. If you're sending emails or you're writing a speech and it's something you're going to give all the time, the most impactful word in the sentence goes at the end. And that comes straight from stand-up days. If you speak after the punchline, the audience stops laughing because they liked what you said and they want to hear more. But if you keep speaking, they stop laughing. And what you get, your instant feedback is gone. And then you think you're dying and they're loving everything you say, but they're just polite because they want to hear more. And so at the end, it's the most frustrating thing in the world. You were so great. Where was I? So those three things in communication are really what the lean in factor is all about. It's what we do. It's creating connections with people. And from stage, your first line is your prime real estate. If you don't have a good first line, they don't hear the second. And so if you don't hit on that first line, so what's the worst thing you could say? Good morning, how are you today? Or I'm a little bit nervous. I hope this goes well. Yeah, so do they, because they don't want to be bored. And just a weird analogy, but you ever drive around a country road and late at night and all of a sudden that bug just like explodes on your windshield and it's huge. You don't know what it was, but it was big. And you do the wiper thing and it smears it all across. And that one wing just keeps flopping up in the air. And you remember that bug. The nodding of your head showed me that you've both had that bug experience right there. You don't remember the bug's name, its family history, how it got there, what had happened to it on the way to the windshield. You remember hitting the windshield. So when you speak, when you meet a stranger, hit the windshield. Be memorable. And then that wing stays with them. That's a horrible analogy, but I just love I did that.
That's a great analogy, actually. It's going to stick with us.
I'm going to throw a challenge out to you. I think you should write your own GPT for Chat GPT. Ray's musings, and if somebody puts in there, you can help them with articulate or come up with something fun and funny.
I was talking to a group and they were talking about AI, and I said, you don't need AI, you need Ray I.
There you go, Ray. I love
That's
it.
awesome.
They're such great and smart tips because it totally makes you memorable when you say something that nobody's expecting. And you're totally right with the, hi, how are you today? Aren't we having fun? And did you go see this speaker? And those are all the normal conversations.
The thing that we notice that gets in the way is the congruency of four things, really, and internal and external. Your actions, your words, your expressions, your emotions. Mm-hmm. And if you are nervous on the inside and you go, I was so confident, right? The audience knows that. And when you say, oh, it's nice to meet you, and it doesn't sound like it's nice to meet you. People always talk about authenticity. That's the basis of authenticity. If you sound like you mean, and the oldest study in the world, which is the most misquoted study of all, is that the 87% of all communication is not the words. That is so quoted. And the guy who wrote the study said, no, that's not what the study means. He was showing that it has to be congruent. Your face, and the face, when you're thinking about things to say to people, the face is like the tell that they can't hide because they're not playing poker. So they don't keep the poker face on. And what happens is this little area right here, the glabella, this is how you find out if an idea is good or bad. Because if you say something and you go, gravity defying behavior on the face is good. A smile is gravity defying behavior. Raising the eyebrows, gravity defying behavior. If they stay flat, they probably didn't understand what you said, but they're not going to tell you that. So you have to find a different way to explain it.
So Ray, quick question. If someone were, because we hear this a lot, they go networking and they're out talking to people, they take an interest in the person, but they feel like no one ever takes an interest in them or never listens to what they're saying.
It could be that you're just boring. You might not be reading the clues, and you might be saying the things that they've heard over and over again. Like when you first go to a networking thing, it doesn't matter who you meet, the first person you meet, there's going to be a level of excitement because you're getting in there and there's people, or trepidation, or fear, or there is some genuine emotion tied to you the first person you meet. The 27th person, it's, oh, what do I do for a living? Gee, I haven't heard that question before. Oh, wow. Oh, I told you I'm from Florida and you're going to ask about hurricanes. Gee, that's original. Oh, I'm from San Francisco. Oh, earthquakes and fires and all that kind of stuff. It's like after a while, it wears you down. So the first person doesn't matter what you say, because there's going to be a level of, yeah,
Right.
get going. But after that, you got to work for it. You got to maintain that internal enthusiasm, because enthusiasm sells. It sells you, it sells your ideas, it sells your products, it sells people, it sells that. We're constantly selling. I think it's Patricia Fripp says life is a series of sales situations. And if you have kids and you're trying to get them to clean their room, that's sales. Getting a spouse to eat at a restaurant you want to eat at and they don't, that's sales. And so what is it that takes, and understanding the techniques that go behind these things, there is no difference in the skill set between influence and manipulation. The skill set is the same. The difference lies in the intent of the speaker. And I was on a call with Dr. Robert Cialdini, the guy who wrote the book Influence, and his answer was exactly that. And it's really true, because if you know what it looks like coming and going, then you can deal with it in the way that you want to deal with it. You're in control. But if you don't know how to do it and don't know how to get people to lean in and go, really tell me more, because that's all you want in life, is a chance to show your personality. And companies, even if it's a B2B thing, companies buy the person. There's always an emotion behind every purchase, even to a CEO that is very data driven. The emotion is, what is it going to sound like when I go to the board and present these numbers that this guy can give me versus what that guy can give me? It's an emotional pick. It's not 100% bottom line. And so every sale is really H to H, human to human. You got to find a way in, and that's going to be a human, or there's other ways.
There's other illegal ways and inappropriate ways.
And that's one thing that entrepreneurs don't do, is they don't see the value of what they do. I connect very easily with people. It took me a long time to realize that's a skill. I just thought that's the way life was. And how can you monetize it? I can teach it to other people who can actually make money off it. And so all these things, think that what we do isn't that great. And so you have to have that belief in your native genius. And there's what gets people in trouble, the difference, the gap that they see between their self-confidence and their self-esteem. So self-confidence is what you can do. Self-esteem is what you think other people think you can do. And if there's a gap, then there's usually a price problem with what they sell things for. And which means that there's lack of work because people don't think they're any good. If you charge low, they think they can't be any good. Right. If you charge too high, isn't that, oh, wow, you're expensive. Isn't that great? Yeah. So you have me when you need me instead of having to shift through hundreds of clients.
I love that. So how would you help someone figure out their genius? And because if they're not funny, I love the book Humor Seriously. It's a great book. Yeah. And it does help you drop funny things in there. But where would you help people kind of start with figuring out their voice?
You have to do a little bit of self-reflecting and think about it. Everybody does something really well, really quickly, really easily. They just don't see it special. And so they need to write down the things that they think they do well. The other thing is asking your friends, what do I do? What do I do well? And the two phrases that drive my business now came from asking past clients, what do I do for you? Clarify, simplify, amplify. Came from Karen Buxman, NSA Hall of Fame speaker. And then the other one, what is it about me that you wish you had in you? And he said, I love the way that you are acceptably unusual. And I heard that and I go, oh my God, that's my brand in a nutshell, because that's what I am. And humor is defined as a benign violation of a norm that surprises you, right? Another friend called me a benign surprise. People who are funny, naturally funny, look at the logic of the words, where other people look at the logic of the idea. And I see every piece of every word, where most people listen for the sentence. And I remember watching that as a little kid and laughing, because it was on The Odd Couple with Felix and Oscar. And Felix, of course, screwed up, and Oscar screwed up and Felix was mad at him. And there happened to be a whiteboard. And he said, I assumed. And then he wrote on the board, assume. And he said, never do this. And it was the first time I ever saw it. Never do this, because then you make an ass out of you and me. And that was on TV. And every word is like that. Every word has pieces. And what happens? And there are things that, like, when you feel overwhelmed, how do you become whelmed? You never hear the word whelmed. You never hear the word gruntled or fuddled. It's always befuddled, disgruntled, overwhelmed. By putting that out there, it is a surprise that people aren't expecting. And that's what creates laughter, is a big part of what creates laughter. So you can see it. You just have to look for it. And some people see it faster than others. But it's not a gift, it's a process. And that's another class that I do, is called the humor algorithm, is teaching the process of humor.
I love that. I love this so much. All right, I'm going to ask you a very odd question. What is your favorite word?
My favorite word off the top of my head, it will be the one that the longest one I know is onomatopoeia.
Brilliant. Just because befuddled, and those are such great, funny
And,
words to
and I
me.
think I listen for those. And when I hear one I haven't thought of, I write it down. And I have these phrases. I take my name and I put it in Ray I, be a remarkable leader. All these things, anything that has re in it has Ray in it. And so I can change words with that. And it produces a smile at worst. If you do something like an easy thing to do now, that if I was going to give a speech at a business or in front of a group of salespeople or whatever, is if I would say something and then I gave a drug-like disclaimer. Asking questions, not statements. That would be so easy to do. And you'd have to memorize it and get it down there. But the audience would appreciate that you did that. Back in the day when I did stand-up, I just strung together. I talked about how we live a soap opera life. And I said, we really do. We're born in this world. We're young and restless. As the world turns, we search for tomorrow. To see a guiding light, we become bold and beautiful. Till tragedy strikes, we wind up in General Hospital, realizing we have but one life to live till we're off to another world.
Oh my God, that's fantastic.
I see by my watch, it's damn near the edge of night. I got to get down to Santa Barbara to visit all my children. My name's Ryan Hope. Thanks for your loving. And it just builds on it. If you look at it, you read it, it's not that funny. But when somebody just throws it all together and you think it's over and then it keeps going and you think it's over and it keeps going, that I used to get applause after that. And I didn't get like huge laughter, but they just so appreciated because I did it for them. And that's another thing about being, when you're in a conversation at networking, don't be thinking about the next question you're going to ask. Don't be in your head, be in their shoes. And the better you can describe their problems, the more likely they are they'll let you solve them. And so understand what it's like to live in their world, look at life through their eyes with their wallet. Don't use your wallet, because most of our customers have more money than us. That's why they're hiring us, right? And my first retail job was selling home phones, and it was commission. And it was like at Christmas time, it's like you were in the corner, like a fighter, like people asking you questions about phones. But there was an $80 phone that made me $4 when I sold it. And there was a $120 phone that made me $1 when I sold it. So I'm going like, I'll just sell that $80 phone. I'll save people $40 and make $3 more. And that's all I did, because that's the most I would spend for a phone. But there was a $350 phone that made me $50. And there was a guy looking at it one day, and I just walked up and I said, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. It had every bell and whistle. It had speakerphone on the handset and on the base, caller ID and call waiting caller ID, all these important features. And he said, looked at me, said, I'll take two. So in that moment, I made like a week's worth of the $80 phone selling there. And that's when I realized that I would never, ever sell that phone again, because there was one that was $190 that was almost as good as the $350 one. So if they didn't buy the $350 one, I said, at least buy the cheap one. And I made like $35 on that $190 phone. Understanding what people really wanted, because they want to be cool. They want to feel like they've got something. When they hire you, they want to feel good about it, right? When people came in, it was the first flat screen. It was a tube TV, but the screen wasn't round. It was flat. And it looked beautiful. And the people would come in and say, yeah, my neighbor's got this 32-inch TV here. I'd like to get that. Don't you want to get it a little bigger than they've got it?
Oh, that's good.
And they go, yeah, I do. And actually, because you're giving them bragging rights. So the intention is to help them in the bragging rights of the neighborhood.
Yeah, I love that. Ray, I could listen to you all day long. Unfortunately, the podcast gods won't let us do that, but it's been so much fun and so educational and so inspiring. So Kirsten's going to go out and meet a ton of people and surprise and befuddle them.
It would be great, though, because I got this great image when you just said that. The podcast god is like a Zeus, but he's got this microphone in front of him. That would be a good logo.
There you go. There's your next logo. So, Ray, if people want to reach out to you, and obviously they should for so many reasons, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Ray Engan at LinkedIn is a great way to do it, but there's also ray@humorspeaks.com is my email address. I'd love to talk with you. I also have a Calendly link that I would love to take anybody that's talking about these things. Give me 15 minutes and I'll whip whatever you've got going around, and absolutely happy to talk to you and send you on your way. No sales, no BS, just you and us doing your thing and making it better. That's the easiest and best way to do it.
I love that.
We'll put all of that in the show notes so people can definitely find you. And yeah, definitely have a chat with Ray. I've had the opportunity to do that. And just like he said, he's not this high pressure salesperson. He will answer questions and you'll have a fantastic conversation. And then from there, if it feels like a good fit to work with him, then he'll tell you more about that. But he is definitely worth your time having a conversation with Ray.
Yep. Thanks for joining us today, Ray. This has been fun.
Thanks for having me. This is fantastic.
Thanks for listening to the Six Figure Business Mastery Podcast. If you enjoyed listening to this episode and you are ready to leverage video marketing on all online platforms, or maybe even start your own video podcast, then you need to check out the Done For You and Done With You program at themarketingvaadvantage.com and take your business to the next level.